we're on the cusp of like something crazy. Like everyone is a master at something, and I know that to be a fact. Your identity is never like a person, never one thing, and it's always being fed by all these different things. There is such a difference in telling a story versus telling a story and asking other people to see it. Absolutes is dangerous. The chase for something, an accomplishment like that, comes at a cost, always. And it took a lot of courage because I was like, well, am I not going to be known as a film person anymore? I've been reflecting in like the past 2 years a lot about like my relationship with that. Some of my most vulnerable moments that I've had in my past when I was a kid or whatever, it was all to a piece of paper. I'm so drawn to people who are so immersed like in life. When I'm with them, I am with them. So it always comes down to go to therapy, I feel like.
Peter,
thanks so much for coming.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You're truly extraordinary at your craft.
I concur.
I looked forward to this for a very long time.
I mean, you're a special guest because you are not just in film. You are in theater. You are in music. You are in entertainment industry. You're in clothing and vintage stuff. And you're just overall like a creative person. And
Thank you.
You know, if I could compare you to anyone, it would be Rick Rubin.
That's a very high honor. Thank you very much.
And we're so excited to talk about, because when we start film school or start college, we're often lost on what we want to do for the rest of our lives. And you are someone who actually took the initiative to really explore all styles and facets of what it means to be an artist, because you are chasing that energy that you find could give you that spark. Freshman year, we worked on a film together, Missing at Sea. One of my first films freshman year, and we co-wrote it together.
That I produced.
Yeah, you produced. And then a year later, we made Teenhood that you also co-wrote with me.
That I produced as well.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you started exploring theater, which I find so fascinating.
That I did not produce.
I didn't direct either. And then tell me about what it was like, having this shift, and what is it like that drives you to chase all these different forms of the art?
This is actually really a special time because like you two are kind of like this is kind of the kind of the trio in a way.
It is,
because we've done multiple projects with this kind of dynamic, and I feel like it's proven to really work. What are you doing?
You're gonna be the trio, right?
Oh, you put on. So you guys kind of like introduced me into like the actual like independent film world at USC, which I'm very grateful for, because it was something that was definitely very hungry to get into once I came here. And I knew that at that point in my life, like film was still the leading force in my life. Like that was the thing I really kind of attached myself to and wanted to keep doing until I ran out of fuel. And that actually happened to me last year. So I'm excited to touch on that too. But I feel like it's just more like a curiosity for me to know how different kinds of art works, I guess, because I'm different maybe from like all the different guests that have come on this, who are like rooted in film, who are like they've wanted to be a filmmaker since they were 6 or something. Like you started film very early, and you like a lot of your formative moments were like by film, and first steps of creativity were in film. I'm very different, as in like my first steps weren't film at all. I didn't really know how to, like, filmmaking was really like a viable thing until like 2019 when I was like 16. Before that, I grew up in China, and I didn't have, it wasn't like a viable option. It wasn't even like a possibility to me that I was aware of. And before that, I did literature, and I was like an English kid and Chinese kid. Like I was the guy that was really good at humanities, and I liked writing a lot, and I read a lot when I was a kid. So that was one of the first steps of writing prose, writing short stories. That was the avenue that I like explored my creativity and was like, oh, this is my thing. This is my path, and it's probably going to stay for a long time. And then it changed when I moved to Vancouver for high school, and I found myself to be really lost because I had a pretty rough like teenagehood, like from like 10 to 15. I was very hungry for something else to like devote myself to, and I think I found that in film. I just really grasped onto it really hard for like 4 to 5 years. But at the end of the day, it's like it's the curiosity for me. Like I just want to know how different arts work because I guess I was given, I saw many different possibilities pretty early on as a kid.
Do you feel like if you want to be a filmmaker, to our aspiring filmmaking audiences, that it's very important to explore all facets of it?
Yeah, I think how we get into the art life is going to be very different because it's like, oh, everyone is going to have one first experience with like the beauty of art or whatever, like whatever you call like the thing of like, oh my God, I feel like a divine moment. This thing is speaking to me to some level now. But I feel like to kind of, there has to be a certain point where you have to let go of that first step, like the first thing you grasp onto, and kind of see like where else can I like grapple myself to in order to like learn more about the different aspects of like how a story can be told or how we express ourselves, because there are so many ways you can do it, and you can like still be like mainly like a filmmaker or mainly a musician, but and to a lot of other people in the world you might be like that for a very long time, but your identity is never like a person, never one thing, and it's always being fed by all these different things that most people won't see, and they don't really need to see because it's pretty private at the end of the day, to me at least. So there's a constant thing there's a constant thing between like what you present yourself as to other people and being aware of that versus what you're actually working on in your like private moments. And I think that dance is something that's pretty important in like what we do in like here in LA and Hollywood and America, the American art scene and stuff like that.
I absolutely agree with that, and I relate to that a lot because when I was in my junior year, I totally experienced like, wait a second, there's like a whole world of film out there. And I'm curious though, like now that you're a rising senior, like how has your time at USC sort of shaped your identity as a filmmaker and, you know, creative in general? Like how has the experience of being here, making new friends, bringing, you know, new communities, meeting new people, like how has that changed you as a person?
This is something I really wanted to touch on because you told me that before, that it's about like how aspiring filmmakers and creatives can like better navigate themselves. This is the whole point of the podcast. So I was eager to talk about the idea of like being an immigrant artist and what that means, and what finding your footing somewhere that you didn't grow up in means, and what are some of the things that might be like that you can't go on without really kind of facing. For me, it was like I've been kind of moving around, zipping around all my life, like kind of chasing education where I could find it, like good education where I can find it. That's kind of our family's whole kind of nomadic pattern. But now that I've spent like, how long has it been? Like 3 to 4 years, 3 years. Yeah, 3 years in LA. It was like at the end of year 2 where I really was like, oh, this is the place I can totally like start actually rooting myself. And it's something that I actually didn't have for me personally my entire life, where I didn't have somewhere where I can just like settle and root myself actually, and then form relationships purely on my own fruition and kind of develop my identity that way. So in a lot of ways, I feel like that blank slate kind of thing is very unique to immigrants because it's very different to have. For example, there are people here who are locals and their identities based in LA, and this is where they had their first memories and all these like really strong roots that we just don't have. But we have the advantage of a blank slate, and I think that in a lot of ways it can be very painful in some aspects, but it also can be a luxury in other ways. And to have a blank slate to kind of understand that, I guess our existence, our being here is always going to be unique to a lot of unique to the zeitgeist, I guess, to like the common understanding of what an artist is. And we kind of can redefine the rules in that sense if we just keep working and into becoming confident in our own identity. So that's what I got from being here, which is that I found myself first really wanting, and I think it makes sense for everyone to want to instinctually chase something that we can see in other people who are here, like other successful people who are here, and we can do a signpost and be like, I'm going to be like that, or I'm going to be like that kind of success, and really like holding ourselves to it because that's what we're good at. But I think the really hard thing and the necessary thing is to also come to terms that you'll always be different in some way, especially because you're kind of like, I'm an immigrant. As I stick out, it's like a fact. I didn't grow up here. But so it's really being honest about what that brings, what that means, what that entails, what that changes, how that makes my relationship to people here different than people who grew up here. So it's a very tall task, but it's very important, especially if you're someone of different cultures, I think.
Yeah. And speaking of that, like the past two short films that we worked on together, Missing at Sea and Teenhood, I think both have that element of someone who doesn't necessarily feel complete belonging in a space.
Yeah.
Whether that's in, you know, a college environment or in rural Wyoming. Like, how do you bring something that's so close to you, that's so personal, that's like part of your core identity, and then like basically throw that out and be like, hey, here's a story that reflects who I am, but it's also fiction. How do you go about that as a writer?
I guess how much of a self-insert it is. Like, it's like kind of navigating that, I guess.
Yeah.
This is a great conversation for us to be having too, because it's equal part your experience and mine.
Yeah.
Because you had the original idea, of course. And for Teenhood, I just went in and massaged my own kind of understanding of what this kid is possibly going through based on my own experience. Which that might be a bit of a different case than like some of the stuff I like to write personally, because I'm helping you work on the thing. So there's a bit of a limit in terms of what I can do versus how I would do it if only I wrote the thing. But that's really tricky to think about, because it's like we have such a unique experience as people who don't quite belong in many different ways that I feel like we're really eager to kind of present the whole thing, present like the entire thing and all its like ugliness and all its like, oh, I feel so much of this and very few people know about it in my life. And that's the energy I see a lot in like in our circle and like people of similar backgrounds and stuff. And I've definitely wanted to do that a lot when I was in high school, when I was first creating film, and I had a lot of like different scripts and videos and blah 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 blah, where I really tried to push that and try to like make people see this is what I'm going through, and I'm telling people being like, this is my experience. And then but then there was no response, and I didn't really get why that wasn't like, I put stuff out there, why isn't it working, and blah blah blah, and all these different thoughts, and like, am I cut out for this? Am I a successful artist? Like what's happening? It truly is like your own experience at the end of the day. It's truly it's like essential, of course, but it's only a part of it, of like having a successful story that's told to like, especially when it's told to a lot of people. I had a very fantastic theater director teacher who I have coffee with a lot, and in theater there's always the question of like, the main thing is you gotta put people in seats and take up people's evenings and make them pay money and travel to the place and see it. And it's a much bigger commitment, to be honest, than seeing a film, because it's like people are on stage and actually doing it, and there's a bigger commitment factor from the audience. And that theater director was like, there is such a difference in telling a story versus telling a story and asking other people to see it. It's such a big deal to ask people to take like 90 minutes of their lives that are their already super busy lives and just be here and witness what you have to say. It's like such a huge responsibility, because you don't know what they're gonna do with that, whatever information you give them. Like, it's such like a delicate thing that needs so much more thought than just listen to me and be here, and even though I haven't really considered how it might be for you. So I don't know, I feel like a lot of it's trying to find that balance between like, there's truth in what I'm trying to write versus in this moment, what are other people who I'm asking to see are going to make of this information that I'm giving them. And I think you need to be aware of that when your goal is to be out here and express to other people and be successful, or whatever our like term or definition for that is. because when it's like shown to other people, there's like a qualitative change that happens. It's like when musicians release music, where it's like once it's out there, it's not mine anymore. And it's the same kind of thing where it's like you need to be cool with that. You can't be like they're reading it different, or like, but you wanted it out there in the first place. So you got to understand what the world is like when you're putting out art out there.
I wonder, like, I think everything we do as artists, we stem back to the question, like, why are we here, right? Like, what do we want to say, and like, what are we living for? And I think a lot of people, they look for those answers in everyday things, like, their friends, or just like happiness. And I just wonder, like, to you, what do you think is some things people can do to find what it is that they are living here for? Now, how does someone figure that out for themselves?
I love this question because it gets me to like talk about a lot of things I've wanted to talk about for a long time. I feel like everyone has a thing. Like everyone is a master at something, and I know that to be a fact.
Okay.
Like everyone is a master at something. Like you're meant to be a master at some specific thing. Like for some people, it's like people who have found it. It's so specific. Like maybe you're very good at like wrangling horses or something, or like you're really good at hitting a ball a specific way, and they become like a pro athlete or something. Very often, because of the disciplines that we have in the world, have like it honestly has, each discipline has such a wide spectrum of like skills that are needed from a person. Even though you might be a master of like this one thing, you can be good at many different disciplines if you really worked at it. And I feel like when you're in your life, when you're doing that thing, you feel like you're really meant to do, or you feel like you're quote unquote meant to do in this case, theoretically, there is a very genuine emotional reaction to it. You feel different when you're doing that. Maybe that feels like adrenaline, like feels like your body is vibrating, and like something is true just instinctually. And everyone has that. It's my like I don't know how you guys see the world. That's never like my consciousness can never ever like experience what you're experiencing right now. But I know that everyone can feel very similar, like feel in similar ways. And because I know that I've sort of kind of maybe found that that environment, that kind of thing to chase or thing to do that makes my body like ecstatic in that way, that's genuine like fulfillment to me, where there's that thing that's just for you. You feel like that when you're doing it, you feel a kind of specialness, and you feel that really you just know it to be exciting. And because it is, like, you don't even have to question it any other way. It's like impenetrable in that way. And of course that can be a very super liberating and fulfilling, and also people can turn it into a very dangerous force, because that's just what all good things are, I feel like, where we can turn it into bad things. But
would you say someone's born with this mastery, or they're destined to do that, or is that something they unlock through their hard work throughout like their life? I
think everyone's born with it, but you can argue it both ways. It's like a chicken and an egg thing, I feel like.
Okay.
Where it's like, is it nature and nurture kind of thing?
It's both.
Yeah, it's kind of like interplay. That's the weird thing about it, where it's like there's never like, this is just my perception of how it probably is, and there's probably like a deeper astrophysical phenomenology, whatever, like study of it that people have theorized to be like more complicated than this or something. But for me, it's like that's something that I know for a fact it's true, because I feel like it is, and I think there's validity to that.
Yeah, like let's say I'm someone who doesn't feel like I'm good at anything. I'm 20. What do you suggest I can do to find my calling? I don't like anything.
I think it comes down to being honest with yourself. And it's hard because it's very easy for people who have gone through very hard things or emotionally confusing periods of their lives, to subconsciously write off a lot of parts of themselves as just like fact. It's the thing of like when someone really like tells you something that's like holding a mirror to you, you're taken off guard. And that happens to me still a lot, where it's like someone will be like, you do this a lot, and I'm like, what? I've always thought that was normal. So it's like that kind of feeling of like there are a lot of parts of yourself, your mind, your experiences that we have to gradually learn to internalize into our like experience. That's kind of the whole like this is a lot into mental health, which I'm so glad I'm talking about, because in Jungian philosophy, Carl Jungian philosophy, it's like shadow work. It's it's like it's the idea of like you have subconscious parts of yourself that that are just operating in as a subconscious thing, and you have to slowly learn how to have the courage to kind of learn to incorporate and process those ugly things. And I've definitely felt that, and I'm very glad that we're doing this now, because I feel like I've changed a lot as a person ever since I met you guys. Like if you think about me on Missing at Sea, I'm very different. I feel like, at least to me, in how I like regard myself, how I see other people, how I like build relationships and stuff like that, because I had a very strong, intense period during sophomore and junior year where that kind of became a very like in my face kind of thing in my life, where there are such glaring things about my experience and myself that was bugging me, because I was like something very deep down was telling me that this about yourself is true, like this is a true thing about yourself, and I knew that in my subconscious, but I just couldn't bring myself to like face that. Like my every instinct wanted to protect me from it and like kind of push that away. And a big part of it, for example, was that, and teenhood helped this a lot too, is that I am really not very like not as connected as I wanted to with my family, and that led to me like kind of having trouble connecting with other people, because I was like that there's a correlation in that. And I think once and therapy is very, very like great way to do this. So it always comes down to go to therapy, I feel like. It's having someone introduce you to ways to kind of guide yourself to be honest about your experience, and know how to live, not even live and thrive with while living the truths about yourself. Because before you can do that, you can't sustainably be an actually great artist, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's so wonderfully said. And one of the ideas that I've learned from therapy is the idea of Project X, which is like the idea that it's like when you're surrounded by like X's, like a you know,
interesting. I've never heard that before.
And then
please explain.
You're kind of surrounded by all these sort of negative thoughts.
Yeah.
And it is a product of something called the snapshot, which is what like which is what you think would be the perfect life.
Yeah.
That really helped me a lot, because
That's
I think
fantastic.
it's where, you know, I still struggle with this a lot, where it's like, if only I have this and that and that.
Yeah.
And then that kind of leads to, I don't have it, or this thing is stopping me, or
yeah.
I can't do it because... So a lot of it is about limiting beliefs. But I do want to talk a little bit about, you know, vulnerability, because I think that's like what you were sort of touching on there. Part of storytelling is creating characters that bring to the audience some level of catharsis. And you can't really do that without letting the character be vulnerable and pushing them to their hardest. I am curious, like, how do you go about exploring your own vulnerabilities in life and in your work? And how does how should, you know, our listeners who are trying to figure that out as well
That's a great question.
Navigate that.
I had to learn, well, in poetry class, in the past 2 semesters that I've done it, that some of my most vulnerable moments that I've had in my past when I was a kid, or whatever, it was all to a piece of paper. That was a fact that it was a light bulb moment when I had that, where I was like, whoa, I've never experienced stronger emotion when to a piece of paper versus when I'm looking at someone's eyes, or when I'm like in someone else's presence. It's always like, and that's how I felt like as a kid. And a lot of the times, because I grew up in China, it was very intense academic work and whatever. And just because I was very creative, but I didn't have any other way or people around me to kind of validate that. So I really just like sought refuge in pen and paper and books. So that was something I had to work myself out of, because I was like, okay, I honestly don't want to live like that. I want to be there for people. I want to be myself around people. I want to be open to people so that they can be open to me and feel safe with each other. And that's a tremendous vulnerability, because I also had to face that I just don't have that much practice at it. And I can't get good at it, or I can't just get it in one night, or when I it's not a switch you can flip. It's like working out. It's like you build it over years and years. Honestly, that's something that's been extremely hard still for me to sometimes come to terms with, because there's such an urge in me to kind of get to it as fast as possible. And I feel like, and I was listening to something, I was listening to Lorde, actually, being interviewed on Apple Music, and they were talking about the idea of arrival and how everyone's obsessed with the idea of arrival when it's not really like a real thing.
Arrival what?
Like the idea of arrival, like you arriving at a place.
Like you're finally there. Like,
yeah, you're finally there. Or like the moment, looking forward to the moment where you're like,
yeah,
I'm here. And America's obsessed with that too. America's a very linear thinking nation in history. Like there's always forward, and we're always going to somewhere.
Right, progress.
And
getting there, yeah.
When the idea of arrival is, to me, and to what I've heard on that podcast, is not really real, because to me, like the ultimate arrival is we die. And that's the only genuine truth that's going to happen. And you can't arrive somewhere without, like, that's just a story, if you know what I mean. There's a story of arrival, and you can like subscribe yourself to it and whatever, but ultimately the truth of it is that it's not the realist thing. And it's very, very hard to like come to terms with, because like everyone else, maybe other people are carrying that idea to like, not for like not even out of ignorance or out of like malice, but it's just more of a desire to kind of be freed from like a pain or something, to like kind of promise themselves that there's hope. And I think that those kind of things definitely should exist, but again, it's a balance of like, at the end of the day, you can't chase something like that relentlessly and give a lot of yourself to chasing that. Like, oh, if I get an Oscar, I'll be happy.
Right.
If I get this job and I have 2 kids, like that's when I made it. That's great. That's a fantastic like achievement, of course. But a lot of the older people I've talked to have told me that like it's always when they think they've arrived at the place, then it's like, now what? Right. I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still living, and life is still I feel the same as I have. There's no like holy like oh, and then there's like you suddenly change in state. That's like what I feel like as a species always fantasized about in our myths and legends and like the pantheons and stuff like that. And it's a fantastic like idea, like dream that we have as a species to like have access to that. But like this is a very like this sounds very grim, but it's like just me kind of working through how we can find like beauty in that truth of like, and the reality is like there is no it really is just the present moment is always the most real fantastic thing to me.
Have you seen Free Solo by chance?
No. Free Solo?
So it's a documentary about this guy called Alex Honnold who climbed up the El Capitan mountain.
Yes, okay. Yeah, I thought it was a mountain climbing.
Yeah. It won Best Documentary at the Oscars. And one of the moments that stuck with me that I think really relate to this is when he accomplished that. He jumped up, celebrated with himself and the team around him, called his girlfriend. And then when he got down, not 5 minutes after, he started doing push-ups again. And he started working out again. Yeah. And then there was a comment by the director that goes, yeah, if he's a normal person, he would probably go out and celebrate and take the day off. But he's just there doing the same thing that he was doing yesterday to prepare for like one of the greatest achievements in human sport history. So then that kind of brings the question of like, he's such a driven person and has such incredible goals and things that he wants to achieve, but at the same time he's also very zen and grateful and very mindful person. So how do you balance having a strong ambition towards a goal, but then also recognizing that like we have so much around us, like a loving family, great friends, you know, being in an environment like this. Like how do you balance the two, I guess?
I feel like the way you frame it is very important, and the time that you manage is very important, because I have my niece and nephew I'm living with my parents. I'm taking care of it at my parents' place near the Grove right now, and my niece and nephew and my mom are visiting, and my niece and nephew are like 9 and 12, so they're in that like trying to discover themselves phase. And for this past week, I've kind of had to like balance my own time, and also just that like all around me. And it's one of the first times where I felt like I have a strong enough grasp with myself and the stuff I want to do, that the two don't come into direct conflict anymore. And but it's such a tricky thing, because this happens with creatives, with kids, with family, and or like creatives with people that they have to take care of. There are so many ways to answer the question, but to me it's definitely something to do with like when you have something that fulfills you, and something that you know will fulfill you as you're doing it, chasing it, like it's always going to be a push and pull. And like the idea of like hibernating and kind of like healing yourself with the things that matter to you and they're rewarding to you, and then burning that energy towards that towards that goal, and that the chase for something, an accomplishment like that, comes at a cost. Always, it comes at the cost of your time, your body's energy, blah 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 blah, your experiences. So being aware of the sacrifices that you have to make, the sacrifices of ambition, is very important. And I feel like as long as you come to terms with that and find ways to like live with it healthily, in ways that people around you are okay with, then that's the ultimate success to me, which is like that balance of like, I know that like for example being like, I know that working on this film will put my body through it, probably won't see my family for like 3 months, blah blah blah, but I being sure that like I can find ways to when I'm with them, I am with them, and I'm not gonna let myself stray, or try my hardest and to be accountable for the time I'm not spending with them and stuff like that. I'm sure that's something, these are conversations that are always had in like industries like this, the sacrifice that has to happen.
I think that is a huge thing with even success, especially successful people. It's like, you know, there's that new movie coming out called Him. It's like, what are you willing to sacrifice? Yeah. Because, I mean, in the real world, without sacrificing, you know, time with your family or time with your friends, it's like, where does that time come to put into your business or your work or your craft? Yeah. And if you're, I mean, yes, there's a thing called balancing, but then, you know, comparatively, if you're trying to be like the next Elon Musk, you're just not going to be able to balance and be the next Elon Musk. You're just going to be a next, like, a happy person. But, you know, it's really something that's been on my mind recently, because, you know, I've obviously have ambitions, but I also want to be a family guy. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's really hard to see how you can perfectly have both worlds. Yeah. You know, being the greatest entrepreneur, director, but also being the greatest dad. I sometimes it's really hard for me to see that as something that's possible.
Yeah, it's hard to say that's a actually achievable thing. And the most successful people, like the most like towering titans of like our times, most of them have like horrible lives. Yeah. Behind the curtains.
But I think what drives them is more than their just happiness. I mean, I don't think Elon Musk is thinking like, oh, am I going to be happy if I build this rocket ship? It's like he's doing it for, you know, greater reasons, whatever it may be. Yeah. But I think it's always that greater purpose that we always have to constantly examine within ourselves.
It's the thing of like what you value. Like to me, like my values are very different from like a lot of like. But again, all of us are going to have different values, and we're going to gravitate towards people who share our values. That's something I learned in therapy, of like finding people that really have the same values.
Now, what are your values, Peter?
I realized relatively recently that I'm a very people person, as in I really am rejuvenated not from excelling at others people's cost, but more like I'm a very like take other people with me kind of person, where I love to teach and I love to share and I love to make people feel seen or heard or feel safe. That's something that, even though I'm giving in that sense, that's something that really fulfills me in a way back. And that's one of my values for sure. Another thing that I've been reflecting in like the past 2 years a lot about like my relationship with my dad, and being like, what are some of the things that we're undeniably the same in, and what's something that that we've always lived for, even though, despite how different I am, and I'm very different. Like my masculinity is very different from my dad's type of masculinity, and that's something I've had to cultivate in the past few years. But I realized that my family, at least the men in my family, have always been very committed to knowledge and to learning, and we've always just had this natural curiosity to understand and kind of get to the truth of something. And even though it's hard to accept, like we would rather feel the pain of like something that's actually true and then fool ourselves and not feel it. Like we would not opt ourselves out of that. We would not opt ourselves out of truth. So I felt knowledge is definitely one of those things too, where I feel like it's like the capital that you need to kind of navigate the world, at least in my own way, of like, I gotta know everything because that's just like a hunger to me. That's not something that I'm trying to like pretend I have. It's just a very like a deep like impulse. It's hard though. It's like, if I have all my values figured out, I wouldn't like that's another thing of like a rival too, which is like, I wish I had all my values figured out. I wish I had a guidebook to like how I should live my life, but it's never going to be that.
Right.
You write it yourself as you go along the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You discover it as you go.
Yeah.
And when the time comes, it will come, and comes in different ways.
Right. I am curious though, like, there's this quote that goes like, life can be only lived forwards, but it can be only understood backwards. I think it's from his name, the philosopher. So yeah, that idea has always fascinated me. It's like most people are just winging it. Like at the moment, like, yeah, we say, oh, you know, I have this experience, I have that, but it's like,
Really
how
immersed.
you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, in a week, or in a year, right? But then once you've gone through that, then you're looking back, and something I find fascinating is a specific, let's say, semester, because we're still, you know, in the college sort of time, but let's just say freshman year or sophomore year, fall or spring, one specific time. When it's 1 year past that time, I have one impression of it.
Yeah.
And then another year passes, that new experience recontextualizes that experience.
Yeah.
And then you go back to your childhood, and then you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
My impression of that, I wouldn't call it wrong, but it was like, it changes over time. And I think that's one of the most fascinating things I've realized.
Yeah.
Having come of age in the US. And then you were just talking about it. So I'm curious, like, have you ever had that experience?
For sure. No, that's something.
Yeah, like talk about it, like how what that's like for you.
That's a sign of growth. Definitely. That's a sign of you becoming more like a capable person, and a person who's more capable of thinking in more mature and like stronger ways. And I feel like we're all very like a lot of people we know, we're all very reflective people, and we're all very like, I'm gonna live life as I'm watching it people. And that's actually brings up a very fascinating thing. I was just thinking about this morning, because I just started reading a book called Outline by Rachel Cusk. And before I read it, I just watched an interview with her, and her talking about now that she's a mom and she has 2 kids, and she has something that I resonated with so hard, because exactly how I write, which is that she has learned, she says it's very important that I live life in a non-observer way before I look back on it in an artist's lens. That you have to experience life, immerse yourself in it first. Go through the throes of it, the confusion of it, blah, blah, blah. And when you're ready, and you then look back as the artist and go, what was that experience? What did I learn from it? But as you're in it, this is something that I've learned and been teaching myself to do too. As you're in it, living it, like especially like a new experience, you can't be constantly like you can't be constantly trying to make sense of it or like try to like really intellectualize your experience, because it's one way to drive yourself crazy. It's it just blurs you from stepping in the right direction. It's like the truth of that moment is always going to be how you feel, and not some answer you intellectualize. Like,
I like that.
when you're living, like I used to do this a lot. This is kind of in high school. This was my like purely my motive, like existence, where I would think before I do anything. Like it had to be an informed, rational decision, and nothing feeling forward. And as I'm in college, I've learned to kind of just let feeling take the lead sometimes, and because that's in a lot of places the truer version of yourself, because it's actually you. It's just,
I see what you're saying.
It's just you going like
Instinct
whoa,
over
whoa,
intellect.
whoa.
Yeah.
Totally.
You can totally tell when someone's more that forward than intellectualizing forward. And I am so fascinated by people. I'm so drawn to people who are so immersed like in life, who can live that way and be so like, I'm gonna throw myself at everything and see what happens. And they have a grand old time, and they sometimes have a really bad time, but it's such a different way of existing and so fascinating and attractive, because I'm not like that. That wasn't my upbringing.
I think it's very immersed in American culture too. You know, it's like there's less consequences. And now that I think about it, it's like before you're like having a family and you're 30, like what we do in life is very not that much consequential in a way comparatively, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I think it is the best time to like jump in, you know, and not think too much on it. Like people, I think, spend way too much time planning on how they're gonna do something rather than just doing the thing, and I think that holds a lot of people back from, you know, doing certain things. Whether it is in like filmmaking, where it's like it's a script you're trying to write, a short film, a music video. Yeah. Like the more you think about it, it's like the less likely you get started, you know. And I want to talk about, you know, something that you jumped right into, which is theater. Yeah. And, you know, I think that's so cool, you know, from a non-theater background, I'm assuming. Yeah. Going full steam ahead, and you're like now an artistic director, producing like these shows, and like tell me about what you guys have planned for the next season, you know? Yeah.
So what we're talking about is a NIAD Theater Company, which is a student-led, very, very old, not old in like the student sense, 10, 11 years old student organization that does theater here at USC. It's completely student-run, completely student-made theater, among many other very good organizations that are here at the USC School of Dramatic Arts. I got into theater because I was feeling a bit lost, frankly, with film. It was between the 2 semesters of sophomore year. Because I had convinced myself at that time, I was very emotionally confused at that time. I had convinced myself that if I just keep going in film and just keep getting on sets and keep doing stuff, I'd be set and I'll find some truth and I'd arrive at something, you know? And
I relate to this like so hard. That's crazy.
I feel that's
you're speaking my mind right now.
That's the common experience, I feel like, for a lot of people who are film school adjacent or in film school. Because it's so fun. It's such a specific thing. Like, it's such a specific collaboration, and you can show people, like, I was on a set and whatever. But my heart was really telling me, like, a kind of, like, lack that I had in my life. And I just wasn't sure where to go. Mm-hmm. And all it took was my very good friend and then roommate, Ben Crane, who just casually mentioned, who's an actor, who's a very good actor, studying at USC right now. Yeah. Casually mentioning, you should come do theater. And because I'm friends with him and a lot of other theater people already at that time, I was like, I was already very familiar with like their little world, because just hanging out in it and seeing them hang out. So I was like, yeah, I can do this. And it took a lot of courage, because I was like, well, am I not going to be known as a film person anymore? Like, am I just saying goodbye to film for good? But it's never that cliche. I learned at the end of the day, because it was just something I really trusted, I guess, my guts in, and I took that step, and I took a directing class. I got to know more theater people from that, and I got to read plays that I've always wanted to read. And I really figured out, and I was lucky in that, how my experiences and skill sets fit into that theater niche. It wasn't that I was trying to become anything, because I was like, I have never done theater my entire life. I'm not going to pretend I know. I'm not going to pretend that I am whatever. It was a blank slate in that sense of like, how do I apply myself in a way that's realistic and that's truly me? And so I figured out that I'm great at leadership. I know other art forms. I have pretty good taste. I guess I have pretty good ways of getting people to come together and do the same thing. Just because of my past experience is doing film, doing newsletter stuff and magazines and stuff like that. So I produced one show for ATC, the company, and then just in my work, people recognized that I had something more to offer, and it's a very high privilege to become artistic director, who's like basically the vice president of the company. And yeah, and through the process, I've genuinely, it's one of those decisions that I feel so privileged to be able to make, where I took such a bold step that I was supremely unsure of in the moment, and then I'm able to look back and be like, yeah, that was for sure the right decision. Like, but I couldn't have, it was so uncertain to me when I was making it. And so now going forward, when I'm making like decisions that feel risky or I'm unsure of, I'm always like, well, I'm bound to grow in some way. And that's the positive side of it, where it's like, am I going to look back on it and truly regret it, or is it going to be something that I can make the most out of it and grow from it? It's just been a very fun time doing that. So I'm very glad I got into theater.
That's awesome.
Yeah, is theater dead art though?
It is for sure a dying art in the sense of like commercially, I guess. I had a theater director tell me that, yeah, if you're wanting to do pure theater going forward, you can't do that. Oh, no. And I was like, yeah, but there's a big but there, because for an art form that old, there is so much, like, its presence in like if the world is completely like quintessential. It's like it has informed so much art's growth and culture and how like civilizations developed back then, and how nations are developing and how people are doing it. And there's bound to be, it's going to be a presence. It's just going to evolve in like what it looks like, what theater's going to look like. And I have a lot of faith.
Film is going to be like that in a few years?
I don't think so. No, I think film is going to evolve in even stranger ways, because even more unexpected ways, because it's digital. It's like
true.
The entertainment of it isn't real and in front of you. And that's something I had to really, it's really funny because in film classes, there are quite a bit of theater people now here at USC and vice versa. So there's always that like you see people negotiating between film and theater all the time. And there are a lot of different stances on it. There are people who are like, film and theater are so alike and I can do both. And there are people who are like, I hate film or like I hate theater, and they're in different camps. And that's really helped me think about like how different actually in its essence film and theater are. Because one's like people actually doing the thing, like it's just live people in front of you in the same room as you, and one's like sound, like electric signals being emitted through a screen. And it feels like it registers to us very different, very similarly. Because the language of it is very similar, and it uses and film evolved from theater, but in its essence of it, it's very different. And I feel that's very essential to realize, to like navigate what kind of skills are actually needed and what kind of knowledge is actually needed to be successful behind the scenes in these mediums.
That's really interesting though, because I have been reading that because of how much like quote unquote slop there is on like Instagram, on YouTube, on like all these, internet based platforms that are like also video based, right? Also with like the emergence of AI, like there's just more stuff that's visual, so much so that when we can't distinguish what's like real or even what's valuable in the sort of digital space,
Yes.
then people will go to live events like concerts, theater.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like where there's a human being in front of you that you're literally, the only distance is the air between you.
Yeah.
Right. There's no, I wonder if this was AI generated or not. Like, it's
yeah.
still human beings ultimately. So I think there's an argument for that. I wonder
Yeah.
if you have any thoughts now that you have experience in theater and film.
We're on the cusp of like something crazy like happening to how art's going to be when we are in our 30s and 40s and really with our hands in the scene. There's always such nuance, I feel like, with this, because whenever art evolves in this way, of course we all feel like our like craft is being disturbed, like our zeitgeist is being disturbed, because this thing that we don't really understand is coming. And whether that be you can put it as like the new scene now that's informing how kids now are growing up and learning about art, and where they're having their first epiphanies, and like under what conditions they're having their first epiphanies. There's so many kids who are having their first epiphanies to what we would call slop, and with AI being a consistent presence ever since they were born. Like there are kids, it's so crazy to think about, as even in our 20s, that there are kids now who have never known an age without AI.
Exactly.
Like strong presence in their lives. And that's just going to keep being true for the next decades. I do think that any extreme attitude on it is not the right attitude. Like any extreme rejection of either side is not productive to the conversation, because I feel like the truth of it is that it's going to be here to stay, whatever we might feel that we want to reject. It's more of a way how we can evolve and adapt with it and find our place in it. And there will be a place for a lot of us, and we just have to find it. Might be pretty convoluted to find what it is, but
well, Peter, you're currently interning at the president of the Academy's company right now. What are you hearing over there about AI?
I'm currently working with Janet Yang, who's actually not the president anymore, because she just signed off after 3 years of long academy
ex-president
work. And
is it because she saw AI and she?
No, she just wants to produce her own stuff again, and it's she wants to focus on that and not just do like general academy stuff.
Yeah.
And they had like a surprise party for her and everything. It was very fun, but I'm not hearing a ton. She like everyone who's like very high up in the industry right now, everyone's keeping an eye on AI, or at least the people who are aware of like what it means. They're always very interested to hear what it's doing, what I have to do. Next week is actually my turn to do this, where all the interns have to consolidate all the biggest headlines that we think she'd be interested in, and then present it to her 2 times a week. And
you guys should download the daily newsletter and then just copy a few things off of there.
I do like a bunch of that's a good way for me to keep informed with like stuff and compare news outlets too. But it's also very interesting overhearing chatter about like what I can't say who for sure, because that's gonna get me in trouble, but how different companies, different streaming services, different people in powerful positions have such different and sometimes extreme attitudes towards AI. There are companies who are not even thinking about it. There's companies who are aware of its existence, of course, and there are companies who are really leaning into it in like an unhealthy way, and there are other companies that are like it's not gonna stick around, and are still thinking that way. And I have no clue at the end of the day to say for sure what's gonna happen, but it feels like to me it's gonna evolve very quickly and productively, like very like in a very sophisticated way, I guess.
How do you see it as? Do you see it as just a tool, or do you see it as something that can replace art and what it means to be an artist?
I feel like in our circle, as like people who are making art, there's such a strong emphasis on it being an art tool, when I feel like AI is so much more than that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's very easy to be trapped in this bubble of like film and AI and have that be your entire world without really considering what AI has been and is doing in all the humongously scaled industries around the world, like all the different things that maybe a lot of filmmakers now would write off as like boring industries and whatever. It's just the truly essential work and the true productivity that it has been able to bring. So it's really a hard thing to say. It's like another one of those zeitgeist defining things where it's just really hard to say if it's for sure a good thing or a bad thing, because it just is. It's like a big, like it's like a skyscraper in like our culture. It's not something that you can't like to reduce it into something is the first dangerous thing I feel like that anyone can do, because you got to be able to see it for all its aspects before making up your mind about it, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, Netflix today, this morning, the CEO, Ted Sarandos, he just announced like publicly that in one of the shows that they just released a few days ago, that there's a shot, or actually a whole scene, where they used generative AI to make a building crumbling down. Yeah. And he was saying how it saved them, it would have cost them 10 times more money to do it the way that they've been doing it in the industry. Yeah. And he's like, we're just going to keep doing it because, yes, it's still artist driven, that there's a group of people working behind it to make it happen. Yeah. But it saves us money. Yeah. And it's called L something. It's a Argentinian show about like a post-apocalyptic, the world is gone like a freezing world. I haven't read too much into it, but I think that's an example where, companies definitely leaning into it. Yeah. But I've also heard, from the more indie side of things that it's not going to replace, on the ground, independent filmmaking. But yeah, what do you...
The tricky thing is those, I feel like, are just aspects to it, where it's such a specific case of it being used for one thing or another. Mm-hmm. And like if I asked, for example, the building thing, is that good or is that bad? Like, how are you going to answer that?
Yeah, it's such a tricky question.
There's never a simple answer because it's not a simple question. And to many, many millions of people around the world, like people who are in industries and trying to, whatever the reason may be, they're going to be like, this is awesome. And another million people are going to be like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. And when something really has that, my favorite directing teacher here calls it like the razor's edge, where in my folklore class that I had last semester, they called it like the liminal thing, the gray area. There's always that middle area where, for the razor's edge example, it's like you put people on the razor's edge. That's the thing. Half the people are going to fall this way, half the people are going to fall that way. And when it's that precise and piercing and that distinct, that's when true productivity and comfort, like true, not greatness in this sense, but true like exciting new things happen. Like liminal is creative. That's what the folklore teacher said. When people disagree on something and have different views on something that extremely, it's always worth taking a look at. I feel like
it's a source of drama too. I was gonna say conflict.
It's
like,
conflict. It's
two sides of the same.
It's what drives drama.
See, I feel like it's not even like what the industry or what the artists or the makers think. It's about what the audience care about and what they want. Yeah. Because if no one wants like the AI stuff, they're not gonna make the AI stuff. Yeah. But as soon as the general audience starts accepting that as regular things, then that's gonna shift the entire industry, no matter what any CEO or any filmmaker wants, because that's just exactly where the money comes from. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm kind of just wondering, like, what is the day that they're gonna put a AI fully generated movie into AMC theaters and people would actually buy tickets for that?
Probably sooner than we expect, to be honest. And it's you can never. That's the thing. The way that this disaster is being like, you can never do this.
You can never do what?
Like just saying that you can never do this.
You can absolutely do anything.
So if there's an agenda being like we need to make people not watch AI stuff, that's similar thinking as some of the worst things that's happened in the history of the world. And it's the same sentiment of like absolutes is dangerous and it's very again reductive. From a personal experience, I'm all about integrity in art and in the process of it. And I am adamantly against the use of AI in my processes. Mm-hmm. But I feel like as someone who's participating in the world's relationship with art, it's not something that you can diminish into like very simple terms, because it just isn't that simple. People are gonna watch it and we can feel like, oh, everyone we know, everyone see on social media is saying down with AI, whatever. But there are so many people around the world who that's already becoming their reality, and that's becoming their every day, and it's permeating like the very like fabric of our society. And it's such a trippy thing, because I don't think we've ever seen in our adult life something as significant as this happen to the world.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Gates said it too. Like, he was the one who, I remember seeing a show where he was on, and two of the guests were like, so what is this internet thing?
Yeah.
Because I don't see it being anything other than, weird, whatever. And Bill Gates is like, well, I do think that in a few years this will transform the way we communicate and we, spread information and create.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, now it's like, literally you can't, I mean, our generation at least can't live really without it. Like, so much of our connectedness but it's also kind of a double-edged sword where it can also sow division and hate, online.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know. I mean, like, what do you think about the same? Honestly, same with like film too. Like, when it first came out, it was also disruptive. Same with television.
Yeah.
Like, there's this whole saying of like television is gonna destroy people's attention spans because you have a remote control that you can change the channel. The moment you get bored, you change the channel. The moment you get bored, you change the channel. And now we have it in our cell phones. We just keep scrolling, within milliseconds. So it's like, I don't know. It's always such a tricky thing because it'll just slowly iron itself out. But it's also one of those things where we have no control over, at least for our level, in the sense that...
Well, he's not now, but
maybe in the future. But I just feel like the people who are actually making progress in, like, say, Google or OpenAI or Meta, like, they're going to go forward without us.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to play catch up. So how do you go about learning and keeping up with it, but also not letting it completely transform the way you do your work,
It's fun. Like, I've been intellectualizing. I've been trying my best to be objective in this conversation, but ultimately I feel like real change does come from it's all we can do is do what we think is best. That's all of us. Like, that's all that's from that's from the Spider-Man video game on the PS4, the 2018 or whatever, where it's like, that's like, we do our best and that's all we can do.
Or Superman.
Really?
The new Superman.
Oh yeah, that's kind of the same message, I guess. But the word for word, that I remember that from, like, that's the best. Like, we do the best we can. We'll do what we think is best, and that's all it is. There is to it. So, whatever our perspective on it may be, as long as we keep at it in like a honest way, a way with integrity, it's gonna help us dedicate ourselves to making change that we want to see. And that's what's most important, because that's being true to yourself. That's being not betraying yourself. I do think that's very fascinating that our generation is a strange generation, because I grew up at the back end of TV. And I lived a period without phones, without the internet, because also I'm from rural China, and that's how I grew up. I didn't see a phone. I saw flip phones for like a couple of years, and then I saw an iPhone, and I was like, what is that? And so I got to live a very analog childhood and see it come into all its like glory at this time.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of reference and information and experiences to draw from in terms of like what I feel that proves to us that like we all have, it's just another way of communicating, and it's never an absolute thing that's going to stick, because I know kids now who are growing up and a phone is just like, it's a thing.
The
like
iPad kid. Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, that's like what you always got to have. But I'm actually very grateful that I got to grow up as the last generation of like the analog kids, because it gives me perspective. It gives me true lived experience that proves that we don't need it.
Would you let your kids have phones when they're little?
Yeah. I'm not going to not let them have phones.
I'm not going to let them have phones.
Really?
Until
That's
what
very
age?
Interesting.
Maybe till
16.
middle school.
That's very interesting.
Well, actually,
But
till middle school is good.
It really depends because I don't even know. Like,
play it.
I'm not thinking that far ahead.
Honestly,
14.
I think it's mostly for me. It's mostly social media. That's the
I
main
think
thing.
the internet.
Yes, the internet but also gaming a little bit. All of it. Actually, they're making a new Toy Story literally about this. You should watch
Yeah.
it.
Well, I'll
It's all
watch it when
about-
I can watch
It's
it.
literally all about
That's honestly a
toys
great idea
versus the iPad kid.
Yeah, that's a great idea for toys.
Yeah,
Toy
that's
Story.
that's the one
Right,
they're making
yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's again comes back to the thing of values, right? Like, what do you value? And what
Football.
values do you like? What values do you want your kids to? What are
Yeah.
the essential values that you would want your kids to have when they grow
Totally.
up? Yeah, and to me, I'm a very analog person too. I learn so much better when I'm writing with pen and paper, and it just feels so much nicer. Like, I hate at the end of the day looking at a screen for a very long time and having to think while I'm looking at a screen.
Right.
This summer I've really only been writing it on pen and paper in its like fucked up mess and then transcribing it onto the computer one.
That's awesome.
And that's a completely different process where it's like I get to like wow, and I'm not limited by the formatting or like
that's how Quentin does it too.
Yeah, I heard. I was watching something by him and he was like, it's my antenna to God, man. I can't take away. Don't put me in front of a
That's
computer.
such a good way to describe it. Antenna to God.
So, but yeah, it's just also like how I grew up was analog and primary school. It was just all you draw, you sketch, you write on lined paper.
Right. Yeah.
It's a really funny thing too that I actually usually always only write on lined paper and draw on line like the and not the blank paper.
Right.
Even though in technically the blank paper is better for drawing because there's no
there's no
line.
limitation
But I like the lines because that's what I've always done.
Yeah.
Because the schools give you like lined paper. They don't give you blank paper. They give you lined paper and they're like, this is your notebook. And I always draw shit on it. And I've gotten used to it. So it's like such a habit thing also to me.
Yeah.
But that's just my thing. And other people are going to have different
Everyone's gonna have their like own process. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. I mean, Peter, something we do on this podcast is we have the previous guest leave the current guest a question. If you could remake a film or a show of your choice, what would it be?
Oof. I have a film and a show. It's a show called Black Lagoon. And it's an anime that happened in the early 2000s. And it's been a huge inspiration to me, not because it was particularly good, but it was like so unique. It was like, it's about this Japanese salaryman who gets kidnapped by this like gang of pirates. It's set in the modern day, so pirates as in like just like criminals. This gang of pirates in some peninsula in like this tropical area, and end up being a part of them. But what struck me was just how existential it was for like an anime and for the stuff that they were able to do back then. How gritty it was. It was so like gritty. It was so dark. It was so like psychological. But it's very easy. You look at it and it's like, oh, it's an anime. It's very simple animation for the 2000s, and it's not really super polished. But I saw so much potential in like the writing and the characterization and the concept of like what's happening, that I would love to do either like a live action or just redo an anime. I prefer to do the live action actually. But for film, this is one of my goals to actually to do is I really want to direct a Batman movie. It's
Hell yeah.
Batman was my hero of my angsty teenage years. Like ever since ever since like 10 or sometime before 10. I just like it was so edgy teenager of me, but he's still my favorite superhero. He's just such a unique and like it's fucking awesome kind of character. Like he's so like dude. I'm a billionaire. I'm just gonna like go out and look sad in the rain and beat up animals and like think about how sad I am and how dead my parents are and that kind of stuff. And it's great. Like it's honestly like such a fantastic like I think makes so much sense that it's such a part of like Superman, a part of like the American cultural mythos. And there's the beauty of it is that you can take the characters so many different ways, and that's why there are like endless comics and movies and stuff like that. And I remember the Batman trailer came out the recent Batman trailer came out on my 20th birthday, and I was so happy. Like it was such like a gift to me. It reminded me of like my childhood a lot. So at some point in my life, I would love to do something related to the Batman, and hopefully, maybe, possibly, have my own take like at it. Like I have my own vision of the world and the characters and stuff like that. That would be an absolute honor.
That's a wonderful answer. Well, Peter, thank you so much for coming to our show.
Time really
This has been wonderful.